Noon all. As you can tell from the severe lack of verve in my voice, I am not feeling well. I have a broken bone in my foot and am currently experiencing a massive fever. I suspect connected. But I'm gonna power through and do what I mean to do. So, today's episode of Terra Nova Tuesday, and I'm just looking at the thumbnail and thinking, wow, I allowed that to get far more spaced out than I should have. Which I will probably correct once I actually finish the recording here. In any case, yeah, I do look like I feel, which is like 9 pounds of crap stuffed in a 3-pound sack. But today, I want to talk about some of the ghost towns in Newfoundland and Labrador. Because it's something of a personal connection. The first place I've chosen to start with is the town that some of my family members came from when it was resettled in the 50s. For those of you who don't know, resettlement was a policy possibly collaborated between the provincial and federal governments after Confederation in 1949, in which many communities were essentially abandoned in order to, well, we'll be generous and say supposedly help the natives of those communities, the residents of those communities. Whether that's actually true or not, one tends to wonder, because even today there are still people who had family connections or geographical connections to Femme who still go there to fish. And my family had a cabin there at one point. There's quite a few cabins. It's beautiful country. Can't really show it to you because, well, unfortunately it was extremely difficult to find accurate information about Femme in the first place. Fortunately for me, I have a family connection to it and a good memory. Whew. Feverish though that memory may be right now. Let's see here. So, we will click the link to Femme. I should let you guys know this is actually the resource I'm using. It's a list of supposed ghost towns in Newfoundland and Labrador. I think it's a bit of a misnomer to call some of these places ghost towns, given that generally a ghost town is organically abandoned as opposed to artificially. For example, it's not like not like the fishing industry had collapsed. It's not like there was a food scarcity there. Loads of families were growing their own food. In fact, I would suspect almost everybody was. Plus, there was hunting for caribou, moose, seabirds, probably rabbit. What we call rabbit, which is actually Arctic hare. Fishing lobster, fish, of course, cod. But of course, herring, mackerel, redfish. In fact, a personal anecdote is when cod jigging was still perfectly allowed whenever you felt like it. This was before the collapse of the fishery. The shuttering of the fishery. The regular trips my family and I would take to our cabin, we would quite often stop to jig a fish for supper or for a meal that weekend that we were there. And it was not uncommon for the jigger to bring up what we called a redfish. And I actually need to check and see if it's actually properly referred to as a redfish. And these fish generally not... this is actually an Acadian redfish, it's known as. So I can show you that picture really quickly. So this is an Acadian redfish. Close that. And while they are food, fishable for food... Oh, bugger off you. While they are fishable for food, they're not exactly the most attractive species when it comes to eating. But what would happen would be, if, for example, we had no interest in redfish at that point, The general choice was to throw the fish out. Now, hopefully, ideally, the fish had been hooked through the mouth and would swim away. In unfortunate cases where the fish had been hooked through the belly or had died for whatever reason, we would throw the fish overboard, and it was extremely common for a family, or possibly several families, of bald eagles to snatch these fish out of the water. So it was quite a wonderful experience to see that. Now, just to give you a better idea of where Femme is, I will try and zoom in. I would open this picture in another tab. Unfortunately, when I do that, this little dot disappears, and it is extremely hard to find it. I think that's probably... Nope. How much further can I get? 430%. Let's try. There we are. Can I get any closer? Okay, 500 is max. So, this area here, in this area, is known as Fortune Bay. Let me just roll that back out to 100%. And come back up to the image. As you can see, this is Canada, sitting at the top of North America. This is Newfoundland and Labrador. Technically, this is Newfoundland, this is Labrador, sitting at the east. This is Greenland. I think this would be Iceland here. But in any case, just to give you an idea of where it's located. So, it doesn't say much in the article, of course. It says that Femme is an abandoned community in Newfoundland and Labrador. And, of course, the article is a stub, and Canadian Ghost Town related article is a stub. A ghost town is an abandoned village, town, or city, usually one that contains substantial visible remaining buildings and infrastructure such as roads. There were never any roads in Femme, and most structures that remain in Femme, aside from the cemetery, are things that have either been maintained over the years or built in place since the resettlement. Let me see what else this says about a ghost town. A town often becomes a ghost town because the economic activity that supported it has failed or ended for any reason. Not the case with Femme, hence my challenging the definition as a ghost town. Let's see what we have here. Wrong button. Here we are. A ghost town, deserted city, or abandoned city is an abandoned village, blah, 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 failed or ended for any reason. A host or deposit disaster by metal mining, very common when it came to the gold rush, for example. The town may also have declined because of natural or human-caused disasters, not the case with Femme. Extreme heat or cold, also again not the case. Government actions, okay, that one, I guess it does in that case fit. The term can sometimes refer to cities, towns, and neighborhoods that, though still populated, are significantly less so than in past years. For example, those affected by high levels of unemployment and dereliction. And this is Plymouth, Montserrat. It's the only ghost town that is the capital of a modern political territory. Oof. So, let's see here. So we've had a look at this. And what's going on here? Why is this so large? And as you can see, of course, as I said, if I had opened it in a new window, the dot had disappeared. It's roughly in this area here. And there are some discussions about Femme. I believe that is, in fact, the same link that is the top link. Yes. Okay, so I'll kill that. Anytime computer. There we go. Now, hopefully this one doesn't go anywhere. Okay, so I don't know who put together this particular article, but the geography is correct. This is, in fact, where Femme is. However, this is incorrect information here. Femme is not on Brunette Island. In fact, Brunette Island is significantly further down the map, down the coast, and is in... Let me see if I can get that to come up here. Brunette Island should be in this area here. So, not a very Good choice. Oh, this is actually quite good. A satellite image. That's nice. So yes, let me see. In through the Narrows. Watch those rocks. Yeah, I've been there enough times that I can navigate there. And this area back here is known as Big Femme. These islands are not, as far as I know, named anything other than this one was named either Big Femme Island or Big Island. And this one was Little Island. No real necessity for creativity there. But this would have been where the town was, and over here, probably over along here as well. I believe one of my grandparents had a home in this area. But over in this area is where the graveyard was. Actually, I believe that's it there. And of course, if you want directions, it's going to be entertaining. Let's say we're leaving from St. John's. Calculate route. And of course, it doesn't really give you much of a... This gives you a very, very poor idea. This is actually not Femme. Right here, this area here, is English Harbor West, I believe, possibly east. It is a significant distance from Femme, through what one could charitably describe as rough terrain. Essentially where Femme is at the end of a fjord. Not exactly hiking country. Not an easy hike in any case. And of course, one of the biggest issues I have with the resettlement is that it was a completely political decision. And let me see if I can find a number here. Of course, there is no total here. But all of these people would have been in Femme. So that's 2, 7, 13, 15, 21, and 7 is 28, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 40, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 50, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, another 5, 6 is 61, 64, 68, 72, and 5 is 77, and 6 is 83, and 8 is 91. So there would have been 91 people living there, at least, when it was resettled. There are communities in Newfoundland now that are that small, that are not being recommended to resettle, though possibly they should be, given that government has crippled the fishing industry, in my opinion, through mismanagement, and also ignoring the advice of those who actually, made their living from it. But just to bring you back to this census page, you'll notice here that you have the word head. This would be the head of the family, whether male or female. So you have 1, 2, 3, this is a border, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, probably a single male. This is either pronounced Simon or Simeon. I tend to go with Simeon, but I don't know. Oh, this is interesting. Oh, okay, there's a page break, so that's not a single male after all. That would be another family. So there was at least a dozen families, if not more, in Femme at the time. Not an insignificant number of people, but the Newfoundland government decided, possibly, as I said, in tandem with the federal government of Canada, to stop certain services, one of which would have been the coastal supply boat, which is somewhat irritating given that it was the merchants themselves who were paying the taxes to keep those going. I'm not sure if that was meant to be an ease of the burden on the merchant class. If it was something that the merchant class even wanted, I suspect it wasn't. It's much easier to... And the merchant class in Newfoundland does have a very, very bad rep for having predatory practices where they would loan the money for the fishing enterprise out to the fishermen, and then collect when the season was finished, and generally would collect about what was loaned out, so the fishermen generally didn't get a lot of profit out of it. And this continued for quite some time. Now, whether this is true or not, it's very difficult to say. My personal feeling is that it would be very dumb of a merchant to do that, given that this is their profit-making enterprise. It's their means to collect funds. It's their livelihood as much as it is the fishermen's. It is quite possible that the fishermen were spendthrifts, possibly. It is also quite possible that the merchants were, if not by and large, at least sometimes predatory. And that's something I can look into another time as well. In any case, folks, I'm coming up on 16 and a half minutes, so if you're out there and you're from Newfoundland, or you have a Newfoundland connection, and there's a town you'd like me to talk about, I already have episode 2 in mind. But if there's a particular town, ghost town, that you would like me to talk about, whether it's still settled or not, do let me know. You can find my email in the description. It's ardentparty@gmail.com. And also, please do like, share, subscribe, and comment. If you're feeling particularly generous, I do have a Subscribestar and a PayPal. Other than that, I am feeling like an absolute bag of dog leavings, and I'd like to go to sleep now. So, as usual, I will wish you all a good day, wish that you all continue to have good days, and of course, rise and rise again until lambs become lions. Bye-bye. Oh yes, I do want to stop recording.